Nicola asks, Dear Lila, how do we engage on IVF? I run in council elections in the north of Ireland and on a pro-life ballot and was dismayed that my pro-life activists were ignorant of IVF. So what is IVF and what's the problem with it too before we...
Yes, it's a very good question. In vitro fertilization, so it's basically taking a woman's egg, and usually these egg extraction processes are very painful for the woman and can be damaging, but basically taking the woman's egg, the man's sperm, and typically to get the man's sperm, he needs to masturbate. So there's that, moral complication problem there. But you take these two, gametes, reproductive cells, and you combine them in a test tube to create a new life. There's a high risk for the child, high mortality rate, because when you're creating new life that way, it's a pretty hostile environment. You're not supposed to create people in test tubes. It technically can be done, but it's not like the womb or the woman's body where it happens naturally. So in vitro fertilization ultimately has led to, and today we have 1 million frozen embryos in the United States. So these are children just, stuck in time. And some have been frozen for decades even at this point. Some of them have been abandoned. So then they're donated for medical experimentation, and that means they're killed. They're allowed to grow to be maybe 14 days. They actually just lifted the 14-day rule on embryos. So now, you can actually, it was a ethical guideline. And now you could have Stanford University growing a child to maybe 3 months old if they find the technology for it. Maybe they can even find the technology to grow that baby till 5 months old. In some sort of artificial womb and experiment on this child and kill this child. I mean, there's no law protecting that child right now. So in vitro fertilization gives the power for that. It also is a very high risk for the child. Like I said earlier, I mean, many of these children have to be implanted and are miscarried because it's, again, a fragile way to bring him or her into the world, and it's not natural. So there's a high death rate for the child. So when people are educated on the different steps of in vitro, how harmful it can be for the couple, how devastatingly harmful it can be for the embryos, and how the high cause of death, how so many of these children, they have no legal status, they're frozen, they're experimented on, many of them are discarded. So they will create maybe 8 embryos and then kill 7 of them because they're seen as not good enough, and then give the couple, 1 or a handful. When you consider all of the disrespect and the extra harm to human life that in vitro fertilization creates, I think the pro-life answer is to say, no, this is not a technology that's acceptable. It's not morally acceptable. That's a really hard message for a lot of people I know, especially those who have been infertile and who have used IVF and successfully brought a beautiful child into the world. And so it's important to note, this is not to say that in any way to say that a child conceived through IVF and then brought into the world is a mistake or a problem, because every single life is an incredible blessing and equal in dignity. But it is to say, when we have choices as parents or adults, what we're going to do for our families, using this technology, I think is unethical. So that's what more and more pro-lifers are agreeing to this, but it's a hard battle because it's not talked about very much. So there's a lack of education. And there's a profound sensitivity and anger among those who struggle with infertility, because it's a message if they're using the technology, they don't like to hear the message. So that's where navigating that is part of the educational battle that we have to fight.
Thank you for watching this clip. You can click here to watch the full episode. And I want to say a big thanks to our sponsors and to our amazing patrons for making all of this possible. Please do us a favor before you go. Click that subscribe button and then the bell. And that way YouTube will be forced to let you know every time we put out a new episode.